It's Dakota from Band Banta, and I'm joined by Angie from Melbourne-based trio Telenova. Angie, how are you feeling today?
Feeling great. There's a bit of sun coming through the window. I've decided to sit on a couch instead of the office chair, so I'm feeling happy and relaxed.
Perfect. I love the big, beautiful plants you have in the
I
background.
know.
Very nice and
It's
bright.
absolutely taking over. I don't know
Yeah.
if we can ever move house now.
No, I think that would be a bit monstrous to try and take anywhere else. So, I want to chat about your upcoming album. It's called The Warning. Now, this album carries a real sense of urgency, and I wanted to know if this album is a warning, who is it for? Is it for your past selves, your future selves, or is it for the listeners?
Maybe it's going to become for all three, but definitely it was a warning for our past selves. I mean, at the time of writing the album, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the song that Fault Line, which comes out with the album, um, is yeah probably like the crux of the album. Really feeling like we were on a fault line and things were getting to a point where you kind of had to make a choice between whether things are gonna like fall apart and collapse or yeah
Right.
make some like hard changes to get your life on a different track. So
On a
yes, it's
different.
very real. The album title is an apt sort of like chapter description for that time in our lives.
Yes. Yeah, and funny that you mentioned Fault Line because that's a track that actually stood out to me when I had a cheeky little early listen to it.
I'm so
And
glad to
I
hear that.
will, yeah, I loved it. It stood out quite a lot, but we'll get into that song a little bit later. I wanted to know more about the album and how you described it because you described it as brimming with tension. Was that a conscious direction from the beginning, or did the tension kind of rise and stir and bubble up as you were writing this album?
Yeah, I think tension's just a good word to describe the whole kind of feeling of the time that we wrote it in, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we never really like, we don't sit around in a room and go, what's our next album going to be about? We're just kind of
Yeah.
constantly writing as a band. So it just captured the feelings of the time. And again, not something that we set out to go like, let's capture our emotions right now. Um, there was actually this moment, like once the album was finished, that my manager said to us, like, wow, like it's so interesting, these sort of like repeated alarm motifs and like the urgency across the
Mm.
album. And we were pretty fresh coming off that time, and we were I guess quite surprised, but found it really interesting that our emotions had made it into not only the lyrics but like the sounds of the record in such a palpable way without
Mm.
really planning to. So yeah, I think that's just a byproduct of trying to write really honestly, that your emotions just find their way in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're writing about all these big experiences, and there's a lot of juxtaposition about the emotions that you've got in the songs. But I think as well, tension isn't just necessarily a bad thing. Like people may hear, oh, the album's described as tense. Like, is it going to be heavy to listen to? But like, tension is a give and a take, I think. Like, was there a relief of tension when you finished the album?
Yeah, for sure. And I think also actually, it's something my bandmate said to me the other day. He was like, whenever you sing on something, there's something about your voice that it's never like actually dark and heavy. Like even if the song is dark and heavy, there's something
Yeah.
kind of like warm and comforting about it, which was a very nice thing for him to say. But I think that's actually true of everything that we all bring, whether it's like the chords or the instrumentation or the production, that even when things feel kind of tense or anxious, or there's this yeah anxiety that's coming through in the music, or even a dark broody kind of ness that's just coming
Yeah.
from the mood we're in. um I think there's always, maybe hope is the word, but there's something in it that's like a spark that's kind of striving for something beyond that. And sorry, that's very like nebulous, not very clear, but it does
No.
it does feel
Music's
like
up for
yeah.
interpretation, so it's fine.
um, but yeah, I believe that while we were kind of writing that album, it was a real time for all of us to process things and actually
Mhm.
express things to one another that we might not have been saying in exact words.
Sounds can even express
Yeah,
how you're feeling, like without
exactly.
even realizing it, and consciously,
Yeah,
talking about it or singing about it, even just the sounds that go
exactly.
with your lyrics can kind of tell more of a story than what the lyrics can.
Yeah. And I think that's is what was happening. Like more than us
Yeah.
being comfortable to just like have it all out, like a group therapy session or
Yeah.
something. I think that's just what the album was. So yeah.
That's yeah, well that must have been a little bit scary then, I guess, kind of putting all those thoughts and feelings and emotions into an album that the whole, world's going to listen to.
Yeah, I guess while you're writing it, we're just in our little studio where we always are together. We sort of aren't thinking that. It's actually honestly when we start doing the interviews and we start getting asked the questions that it's like, oh, how are we actually going to articulate and talk about this really personal time? That's the part
Yeah.
that's scariest, actually. The writing is kind of easy.
Fair enough, because it's almost like you're, yeah, in your little bubble, you're in your studio, you're in your safe place making this album for yourselves, and there's always the intention to release it, or you may be making songs, that are always going to be
Yeah,
just for you to keep. But then when you're talking about it and you're like, oh, people are actually going to listen to this and ask
yeah,
me questions about what these lyrics means or what this song means, I could imagine it would be a little bit daunting.
yeah. That's the most daunting bit.
Absolutely. And so this album does touch on deeply personal themes, the push and the pull of competing emotions. How do you use those sonic elements to amplify these intense lyrical moments? So Fault Line for me, I think, did this really perfectly.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite a. It's sort of hard to put our finger on a little bit because we often write the music in tandem with like the melodies, and then I'm sort of jotting down lyrics, and it's hard to know which came first sometimes.
Hmm.
Or in some cases, the music comes first, and then that kind of evokes a mood or expresses a mood. Then the lyrics
Mm,
come, and then more music gets built on top of the lyrics that's really like drawing out the meaning. I think I mean, specifically for this album, we were very drawn to quite industrial sounds.
yeah.
The first album feels to us, I mean, I don't know how it's going to be perceived by other people, but definitely in the process of making it a lot more kind of classic and organic. And we
Hmm.
really were drawn to like the string section or the acoustic guitar picking. And
Yeah.
um, with this album, again, without sort of discussing it, we just found ourselves over that sort of year or two, just being really drawn to these quite like mechanical, industrial type percussion sounds,
Hmm.
messing with any organic sounds that we did have to sort of like distort and twist them. And we'd often speed things up. We're like, this feels too slow. We need to speed this song up more. And as we touched on earlier, I think all of that is sort of like a subconscious. That was more where our sort of mental and emotional state was. So that's
Yeah.
what felt more comfortable to be expressing or working within. But yeah, I do think there's like a direct correlation between these sort of like synthy pulsing alarm like sounds that we ourselves found were across the
Mm,
record, and yeah, and the feelings that sort of feeling of like urgency and warning and worry
yeah.
that we were feeling at the time.
Right, that's really interesting. And you mentioned before that sometimes, the sounds would come first.
Mm.
As the songwriter, was there a particular song that the band came to you with the sounds and it was kind of like hashed out a little bit and you listened to it and there was an emotion that swept over you that led you
Mm.
to writing the lyrics?
Yes, I actually can't. I'm sure on this record there are songs where like where the sort of complete track was brought. But one that I remember most poignantly was like it wasn't a finished track, but Josh just started playing on piano. It's called Paralysis Ghosts, which was on the EP as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of this like do 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 do, and then this beat comes in, but there's something quite ghostly about
Yeah.
that kind of pulsing piano, and it made me think of like a sonar sound, like the image of that sort of like what is I don't know what that is actually the
Yeah.
submarine thing where like the
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
and then
I
there's like
know
a
the one you're
blip.
talking about.
Yeah, and I yeah, it's sort of something about it to me felt like the blip was like a person that was quite kind of like isolated in this big black space and was sort of
Yeah.
floating around. I mean, honestly, at the time, it was about my bandmate Josh because, yeah, and he's quite open about this, but he was going through, yeah, he was wrestling with just addiction stuff that was kind of coming back to bite him a
Yeah.
little. And so we as a band, by sort of default, started going through that journey together. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I was just sort of reflecting on just finding it really hard to sort of like be in a room with someone that you're really close with and that you love, but then feeling this like chasm and distance that comes from,
Mm.
yeah, when people are just in a state where they're not themselves. And you can also see people like sort of retreating and cutting people off a little and trying to pretend that everything's fine. I'm sure we've all
Yeah.
had experiences with family members or friends where we've kind of seen people going down that path. So Yeah, that's one of those weird things of like having the conversation in the room through the music. This was a song about kind of watching someone like start to cut off from the world, and that something about that boop 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 kind of sonar sound feeling like a warning of like don't go off into the
Don't
black.
go too far. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was really funny. Perfect timing for my
Yeah.
glasses to just drop down my face. Yeah, that's one I can remember.
Wow. Well, that's really brave of him to have, a single that
Mm,
incorporates all those things. And
mm,
it's fantastic that he had such a beautiful support system and for you to be there. And for music as well, for him to be able to convey his feelings without necessarily saying them. I think
yeah,
that's something so great about music is that is a great way to convey everything. And
yeah.
that album does this so well. There's so many incredible emotional themes throughout the whole thing.
Thank you.
No
Yeah, music is
worries.
definitely like another language, which is pretty awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And were there any songs on the record that you kind of had to rein in because they felt too exposed or emotionally intense?
Um, I think for the most part we just let it out. I do
Yeah.
remember maybe in the studio, I mean I'd have to check with Ed, but I reckon in the studio at times when I was doing the like final vocal takes for The Deep and In the Name of Your Love,
Yeah.
I reckon there might have been a few points where he was like, "Should you sing it a bit less intense?" And I was kind of
Yeah.
like, "Just wait, just like let me get all the emotion out, and then if we feel like it's too melodramatic, we'll pull it back." But
Yeah.
I think the only thing we ended up doing is like, in the name of your love in the chorus, there's actually like heaps of stacked vocals of me doing like lots of harmonies. I sort of wanted this like
Mm,
anthemic choir effect. And then when we heard it in the mix all up really loud, we were like, nah, I think it needs to be there, but like not heard, just felt. So we kind of
right.
turned that intensity down. And I think you can still feel it, even though it's like barely audible, but there is this like energy and
Yeah.
push behind it. So that's
It's
maybe the one thing we reined in.
okay. Yeah. So we didn't
Yeah.
want to have like 20 million harmonies of you just
Yeah.
taking over the song. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because I feel like you've got such a cathartic voice, but it isn't like too loud and intimidating. So I wonder what it would have sounded like to have all those harmonies and to listen to it. Maybe one day we'll get a Telenova track that's
Yeah,
a
that's
little bit
the
angry and
the
angsty.
acapella only.
Yeah. And do you think maybe this album's a bit more reflective or reactive? Is it something you wrote over the year, reflecting on experiences and releasing all the music and playing all the big festivals, or is it kind of a reflection piece?
Hmm. I I think it could be categorized as kind of both. Like as I
Yeah.
sort of was describing with like Paralysis Ghosts and yeah, just how the songs naturally came out of the emotional state we were in. I think that's kind of reactive, I guess. Like
Yeah.
I don't think I think like yeah, doing all these interviews and sort of like coming up with the artwork and how we're gonna package it all up at the end, it was more the reflective phase where we actually
Okay.
sort of had distance from that time to look back at it and go like, oh, there's a bit of a dark cloud that's like
Yeah.
captured in this album now. But um, yeah, I mean, as I said at the time, like we didn't, the warning, the name of the album came right at the end, like in many ways,
Right.
once we were way past the worst of it and life actually looked really different. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's, I say it was more just sort of like in the moment, just reactive, but on like
Hmm.
quite a subconscious level.
Right. And then maybe that end part was the reflection, but the reflection of the whole album rather than like the reflection of experiences and
Yeah.
moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Mm.
Now, Angie, this question's for you. So not only are you the singer and songwriter in Telenova, but you're also a filmmaker. I want to know if this album was a genre of film, what would it be? Because I feel like it is quite an expressive
Mm.
and there's a lot of imagery in the album.
Yeah. Actually, someone did ask me this question last week, so had a bit of time to think. But they said a specific film. I I definitely think this should be like a 90s thriller, but like with a bit of like an art house vibe to it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. It's not like
Yeah.
a thrasher like
No,
slasher
not that
thriller.
kind of
It's
thriller.
not like
Not
a
like body
Scream
horror.
or no,
No, no.
no.
Like a psychological thriller, like there's that
Yeah.
It's like the opening to Paralysis Ghosts, that like little like doo doo doo. It's just constantly
True.
like in someone's mind. And a lot
Yeah.
of running, I think. Just a lot of running through cityscapes.
Through cityscapes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Because when I was listening, I thought maybe like a misty forest kind of scape.
Ooh, maybe it's out of the cityscape into the misty forest.
Oh, I like that.
Well, you get to the end of the misty forest to realize you're right back in the city, Maybe that's it.
Yes. Yes. Very cool. And now, so you're all going to be taking the warning on tour,
Hmm.
not just in Australia, but you're also going international as well, which
Yeah.
is very, very exciting. What excites you most about taking these songs on tour?
I think particularly this record more than any of our previous kind of songs, EPs or albums is that this the music is it's actually harder for us to play as a band, and I think that is really exciting for us because
Yeah.
it means that we're much more musically involved. We're kind of yeah, we're a lot more like in sync with each other. Um, and I also think that they're quite yeah, like the structures aren't as sort of like verse chorus all the time. Like a lot of them have these
No.
quite like long builds towards the end, and
Yeah.
that like playing a long build that just sort of repeats and keeps growing and growing just takes on a whole life of its own when you're playing with a live band and a live drummer and you're all sort of like riding that wave together. So I think yeah, most excited about just how the songs come alive. Yeah, I almost feel like quite a few songs on this record are only really fully realized in a live setting because of how they're written.
Oh,
So yeah.
okay. And is it going to be quite theatrical, do you think?
It depends what people's definition of theatrical is.
Okay.
I mean, I think as a performer, I did a lot of like musical theater when I was younger, and so
Yeah.
that kind of like spirit of drama definitely like comes
Yeah.
out, and especially in shows like the Forum in Melbourne where we're playing. I mean, it's just the most
Yeah.
beautiful venue, um, where we're able to really like yeah go all out with the stage design and the visuals. I'm collaborating with a good friend at the moment to come up with something pretty special. So yeah, I mean not
Oh.
every sort of depending on the venue, every show will be a little bit different, but
Yeah.
um yeah, I definitely think those bigger rooms will be quite we're aiming for like a transportative, transcendent. We want
Oh,
people to
yeah.
kind of just get lost in it. So
You want to be transported into the album.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. You want everyone to, be just be captivated by
Yeah,
the show and to be involved. Like, I guess that's
exactly.
the whole thing about performing. They're there for a performance and you want to give it to them.
Yeah.
You did mention that there's going to be some songs that they're only going to really feel in full while you're there. Is The Deep one of those songs? I'm really intrigued that you start the album with a 5-minute version of The Deep and then you close the album with the 3-minute single version.
Yes.
Can you talk us through that creative process and how that
Yeah,
came to
yeah.
be? Yeah.
It's not as interesting as you might think.
I'm sure
Basically,
everyone's
yeah,
asking you about it.
basically the album was always that it starts with The Deep and then it actually ends with Waiting for a Miracle. But
Okay.
people on your team have great advice. Things like radio doesn't want to play a song with a 1.5 minute intro. We need a
Yeah.
radio edit. So our
Okay.
compromise was like, yeah, we'll do the radio edit, but the album still needs to like, sit from like the vinyl will be from The Deep to Waiting for a Miracle.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, our compromise was like, you know what? If Waiting for a Miracle finishes and then people hear the intro to The Deep again because the single has started playing, there's
Mm.
quite a nice like cyclical thing to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they might just listen to the album again.
Fair enough. Yeah, they might just end up and then they've got like a 7-minute version of The Deep all up.
Yeah,
But it's a
exactly.
fantastic track. I'm
Yeah,
happy to
thank
listen to
you.
7 minutes of The Deep. That's fine.
Thanks very much. But yeah, that's the true story behind it.
Wonderful. I thought it would be like, oh, well, when you're in the deep end, maybe like, I don't know. I thought maybe there'd be something kind of metaphorical about it. But you know
I
what?
wish. I
Sometimes
wish I could
having a
tell you
simple
that.
answer is best.
It's just true
Especially
music industry stuff. That's all it is.
amazing inside scoop there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Angie, for catching up with me. And if you haven't got tickets yet for the upcoming tour, make sure you do and make sure to stream The Warning.